Okay, happy Sabbath. Today is July 7, 2018, and we're continuing with our study specifically about the controversy of the daily as the way it was presented in the 1919 Bible Conference. All right? We've been studying about 1919 Bible Conference, and there's multiple things that was being discussed at that Bible conference. Now, the people that were invited there were selected. Not everybody can go there. Only certain people can go. And they were selected, and there's multiple things that was... This is only just a few of the topics that was... the major topics that was discussed. In the mornings, Prescott, W.W. Prescott, he would teach on the person of Christ. He would have a devotional. Every morning he would have a devotion of the person of Christ. And the person of Christ that he was basically saying is that the divinity of Christ can only be comprehended and understood if he is co-eternal with the Father, right? And that generated a big discussion. And who was also wanted to, was on his side of presenting that was Lacey, right? H.C. Lacey, right? Yeah. But, and A.G. Daniels was also on his side, right? The other thing that the other thing that was being discussed, major topic that was discussed, is about the inspiration of the testimonies. Specifically about the inspiration of Ellen White when it comes to historical evidence that they can see, because it was Prescott that helped Ellen White also revise the 1911 book on not desolate, just great controversy, right? Because there was multiple historical facts that came up such that it had to be revised, right? So because of that, they said, hey, you know what? This it must mean that Ellen White is not inspired. Now, the inspiration of Ellen White on the health reform, the inspiration of Ellen White on the educational institutions, the inspiration of Ellen White on the versions of the Bible. There's so many things that Prescott and Daniels started to pick apart that we don't have to believe in the inspiration of that.
I had to get up there and look at that slide because I don't think I see only two women in the whole.
Yeah, there was a couple of women actually there.
Yeah.
There's two women.
All men.
Yeah, they were all men. I know this person right here because that's A.G. Daniels. But I don't recognize Prescott from this. I know his picture from other pictures, but I tried to look here and see which one is Prescott. I'm not sure which one he is. But anyway, this one is obvious. This one right in the middle is A.G. Daniels. Right? And another big discussion was on the daily of Daniel 8, right? The daily of Daniel 8. Because we know that there was two views that was prominent in the early 1900s, right? That came up. The thing about it is, who was it that taught the old pioneer view? Who was it that first came up and taught the old pioneer view? William Miller, right? William Miller understood based on how did he study? How did William Miller study? How did he find out about the daily sacrifice of Daniel 8 and Daniel 11 and Daniel 12? Did he have spirit of prophecy? No. There was no spirit of prophecy. What he did, he was use the Bible and the concordance. He used what is called the proof text method. He used Bible verse upon Bible verse, line upon line, precept here, little precept there, and he figured out that the daily of Daniel 8, Daniel 11 and Daniel 12 was actually talking about the pagan religion, right? That was set aside so it will allow the papal religion to now continually persecute God's people. That's the pioneer, the old pioneer view, right? Okay. Now, Conradi was the president of the conference in Europe. He started teaching that the daily of Daniel 8 was Christ's ministration in heaven, because it's the daily sacrifice. That's Christ's ministration in heaven. And this was taught to E.J. Wagner, W.W. Prescott, and A.G. Daniels, and eventually also Willie White. So there's 5 prominent leaders that started to teach the new view. Now that's called the new view, right, as compared to the old view. All right. Now, I remember the story when at the conference, A.G. Daniel says, oh, remember that time when we were in a big controversy? So what did I do? I went to Ellen White. And when I went to Ellen White, I brought with me the book Early Writings, as well as a chart. And I showed to her this chart. We all know the chart. It's the chart that Haskell has been using when he was preaching, right? And I brought to Ellen White this chart, and I brought the early writings. And I said to Ellen White, can you please explain to us what do you mean by this? Then I saw in relation to the daily that the word sacrifice was supplied by man's wisdom and does not belong to the text, and that the Lord gave the correct view of it to those who gave the judgment hour cry. When union existed before 1844, nearly all were united on the correct view of the daily. But in the confusion since 1844, other views have been embraced. And then the darkness and confusion have followed. Now, and then he goes, time has not been a test since 1844, and it will never again be a test. Now, Ellen White and A.G. Daniels claims that, when I went to Ellen White, she said I was not given what the daily actually means. What the controversy of what your guys are actually fighting about, I was not given an understanding of what you are actually arguing about. And that silence is eloquence. At this time, because we already have settled what the daily is. What the first generation pioneers believed, that's the correct view. So why are we trying to bring up a new view, right? Okay. And then she also went and said that you who hold the old pioneer views, do not use my writings. Do not use my writings to support your view. Do not use the spirit of prophecy to support your views of the daily, right? Now, why did she say that? It's actually quite easy. Because how did William Miller first come up to understand the view of the daily? Was there any spirit of prophecy, Goats? There's no. You need to understand the daily directly from the Bible. Do not use spirit of prophecy to understand what the daily is, right? All you need is the Bible, right? So don't even use my quotes, right? Don't get into an argument, because when you get into an argument, this is exactly what Satan wants, right? And when Satan wants that there's a big controversy, people are going to get confused, right? But when it comes to 1844, when there will no longer be a test since 1844, it will never be a test. That is actually pinpointing October 22, 1844, when the third angel's message is given and the vision to Hiram Edson is given regarding the what? Sanctuary, right? So you starting to understand the Christ's ministration in the sanctuary. So now they're saying, if Ellen White was said we don't have to use spirit of prophecy to defend our view of the daily, and now we understand that she's really not an inspired writer on history, we don't really need this paragraph right here. We don't really need it. We need to just understand that the daily in Daniel is actually talking about Christ's ministration in heaven that was revealed when there was no longer a test after 1844. So what they're saying is that this part, we don't believe. We don't have to believe this part here. Right? All we need to do is understand the big picture. That after 1844, the sanctuary message is being given. Christ's ministration is going on continually in heaven. And what is the papacy trying to do? Trying to do the daily sacrifice is taken away. So the papacy is taking away the daily sacrifice, Christ's ministration, right? It's producing a counterfeit. This is what Prescott and what? Prescott and Daniels is teaching, right? Okay, this gets to be a problem because Haskell and the Haskell, Uriah Smith, many others, right? J.H. Wagner, the father of E.J. Wagner, they held on the old view, and their contention was, I'm gonna jump down to this one. All right. Here, Haskell said, when it comes to Prescott trying to defend the testimonies, when it comes to Prescott and he's using a different understanding than what the early writings is saying, basically it's the new view against early writings, right? I'm going to defend early writings, but Ellen White said, don't use my writings. But the pioneers, the old-time pioneers, they took it that the new view was attacking spirit of prophecy, was attacking early writings. Right? Okay. When the new view says we don't have to take Ellen White based on the fact that she's not inspired on history. Okay? All right. Yeah. All right. So what did Prescott, I'm just going to jump to the, we did this for a couple of weeks before, and we'll see what Prescott says. Prescott basically says here, the Christ ministration in the sanctuary is a continual ministry, right? It is an anti-type of the continual sacrifices was given by the Hebrews when they had to daily give sacrifices in the sanctuary. So Christ's ministration is a continual ministry, right? If you take away that which brings this, you despoil him of Christianity, and that is exactly what the papacy has done. All right, this is exactly what the papacy has done. Okay. The problem is there is something here that is important for us to understand. Sure, we can see, Christ's ministration in heaven is an anti-type of the sacrifices, right? The sanctuary sacrifices. But is it true that Daniel 8:11 says that the papacy is actually taking away Christ's ministry? Is Daniel 8:11 actually talking about that? Is that the context of Daniel 8:11? Is that the context of Daniel 8:11? All right. Okay, let's go to, I'm going to go to, all right, 46. All right. Okay. This is just a summary of what Ellen White was saying, right? A.J. Daniels. A.J. Daniels, I have never gone to her writings and taken the history that I found in her writing as the positive statement of history regarding the fulfillment of prophecy. I never understood that Sister White undertook to settle historical questions. Right? This is what Daniel's saying. Prescott saying, but I do say that when you come to a simple statement of facts of history, she herself by her own course appeals to the facts, and we can do the same. So when it comes to history, we don't have to rely on Ellen White. Okay? So when you look at the daily of Daniel 8 verse 12, then Daniel 8:11, what is the context of the daily in Daniel 8? What is the context of the daily sacrifice in Daniel 8:11? What is the context? It is in a certain vision. What was the vision that was given? About the ram and the he-goat and the little horn, right? And the little horn will stamp on God's people, right? Remember that? And he will magnify himself against the prince, right? And by him the daily was taken away, right? And the sanctuary was cast down, right? So this is a what? What is this? It is a vision of what? History. It's a historical vision. So the daily being taken away is part of a history. It's part of a historical event that happened in Daniel 8 verse 2 until Daniel 8 verse 12. When you see a prophet having a historical vision spanning from the time of Medo-Persia until the little horn, which is the papacy, right? What kind of vision? What's the name of that vision? What kind of vision is that? That's a Chalzone vision, right? It's a Chalzone vision. The Hebrew word is Chalzone vision, right? Okay, it's a Chalzone vision. So this is what William Miller understood. It's a historical event. When the daily sacrifice was taken away, it's a historical event. But Prescott and Daniel says, when it comes to history, we don't have to believe in Ellen White. So, you know what? This part we don't have to believe in because she's not an authority on history. Right? So we can actually use that and say, well, it's got to be Christ's ministration. Because when it comes to history, we don't have to believe Ellen White. Ellen White said, I have no instruction on the point under discussion. What are you trying to argue? I was not given an instruction on what you're trying to argue. I entreat the brothers Haskell, Lawborough, Smith, and the others that they make no reference to my writings to sustain their views daily. Right? So in that case, don't use my writings. When I say that William Miller understanding is true, don't use that. So basically we're gonna throw out all of this. We're gonna throw out all of this. But Ellen White goes on to say, to correct little things in the books written, you suppose would be doing a great work. He, A.G. Daniels, has not liberty to meddle with the writings in printed books from the pens that God has accepted. Wow. Do you have the right to change early writings? Do you have the right to change William Miller's writings? That is what God has accepted. All right. Okay. All right. Now we'll go to Daniel 8:11. All right. Okay. This is a little. Just go to Daniel 8:11. And yea, he magnified himself to the prince of the host, and by him the daily was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. The taken away here is room. When you look at the Hebrew word, it's room. And the sanctuary was cast down. What's the sanctuary here? Is it qodesh? No, it's miqdash. All right? So it's miqdash. And taken away, that is room. What does room mean in the Hebrew word? Lifted up. It's actually not. So the pioneer view was when pagan Rome magnified himself even to Christ by crucifying Christ, and through pagan Rome, the pagan religion was lifted up and assaulted. And then the city of Rome was cast down because that's the miqdash. That's their sanctuary of strength, right? And an army was given to the papacy against pagan Rome by mass conversion. And it cast down to the truth, the ground, and it practiced and prospered, right? This is the old pioneer view. Now, if you this is what Prescott was saying. And now, his priesthood is a continual priesthood. His sacrifice is a continual sacrifice. His ministry is a continual ministry, all growing out of the fact that he in his own person continued. Now, if you take this away, you despoil Christianity. And that is exactly what the papacy has done, right? He's referring specifically to Daniel 8, verse 11, right? Because if you use the new theologian's view, which is Prescott's view, Papal Rome magnified himself even to Christ, and through the papacy, Christ's sanctuary ministry was trampled upon, and heaven was cast down. Right? This is his interpretation of Daniel 8:11. When the actual word is lifted up, room means lifted up, and sanctuary here is not qodesh, it's actually miqdash. Right? I was shown that Brother Daniels and Brother Prescott were weaving into their experience sentiment of spiritualistic appearance. What were they doing? An historical event, what were they doing to a historical event? They were spiritualizing it into the ministration of Christ. They spiritualized it. It's a historical event, right? It's in the context of a Chow Zone vision, right? You, Prescott, suppose that a mistake has been made in the view that has been held by some of our brethren in regard to the sanctuary question. Okay, all right. Wow. Any man who seeks to present theories which would lead us from the light. She wrote this in 1907, exactly when the daily controversy was at its height, right? All men who seek to present theories which would lead us from the light that has come to us on the ministration in the heavenly sanctuary should not be accepted as a teacher. A true understanding of the sanctuary question means much to us as a people. When we were earnestly seeking the Lord for the light on that question, light came. In vision, I was given such a view of the heavenly sanctuary and the ministration connected with the holy place that for many days I could not speak of it. Wow. All right. Okay. What about Daniel 8, verse 13 and 14? Okay. Remember, when the historical view was given to a prophet, it's a Chow Zone vision, right? But now, here, Daniel 8, verse 13 and 14. Then I heard one saint speaking to another saint, and unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall be that Chow Zone vision? Now, it changes. Here the vision changes. Is this still a historical vision? It's now the Mare vision, right? Because it is now an appearance of Christ. Because with the other vision, in this vision here, we have the appearance of Christ. Because this is Christ speaking to Gabriel, right? How long shall the vision be concerning the daily and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. Right. The pioneer view. How long shall the Chalzone vision be concerning paganism and papacy? Right? Because it was, the Chalzone vision was concerning paganism and the papacy, trotting underfoot both the sanctuary and the host. Right? Yeah. And he said, unto 2,300 days. Then now this is what? Sanctuary, is this miqdash or qodesh? It's qodesh, right? Yeah, it's qodesh. Right? It's Christ's sanctuary. Christ's sanctuary in heaven. Now the modern theologian's view, then I heard one saint speaking to another saint, said unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall the vision considering Christ's sanctuary ministry and the papacy to trodden both the people and the sanctuary? Wow. Does not make sense, right? Does not make sense, right? Others of our brethren have not been guided by wisdom and have not reasoned clearly from cause to effect regarding the results of their efforts to uphold their views regarding the interpretation of the daily. Prescott and Daniels, you cannot reason from cause to effect. The cause is paganism was being taken away. And the effect was, because paganism, religion, can no longer persecute God's people continually, now the effect is what? The papacy can now persecute God's people, right? But you, with your understanding, you cannot argue from cause to effect. All right. Okay. Let's see. Now I go to this part. Daniel 12, verse 11 and 12. And from the time that the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1290. Blessed he that waiteth and cometh to the 1335. All right. From the time that paganism was set up, because now this is taken away is Sur, right? And the time that the daily was taken away. The taken away is not room. It's Sur. So this is actually set aside, when it's set aside. When the time that when paganism was set aside and the papacy set up, there shall be 1290 days. And blessed he that waiteth and come to the 1335. Okay, this is, we know this what A.G. Daniel says. When he said that he went to Ellen White, then when I would come back to the 2300 days, or 2300 years, she would straighten up and say, this is the thing we never can move away from. Now this is according to A.G. Daniels. This is what Ellen White said. I tell you, you never can move away from the 2300 year period. It was shown to me that that was fixed. And I believe it was, brethren. You might have just as well try to move me out of the world as to try to move me on that question. Not that because she says it, but I believe it was clearly shown to her by the Lord. But on this other, when she says she was not shown what the daily was, I believe that. I take early writings 100% on that question of the daily, fixing that, period. This is the thing she talks about, and I take the Bible with it. And I will take the Bible as to what the daily itself is. So what he's saying is that the daily fixes the 2300 days, right? The 2300 days time prophecy ends when? October 22, 1844. But does the daily actually fix the October 22, 1844? When you study the daily and when that was, does that actually fix October 22, 1844? No, it doesn't. Because what does it fix? The 1290 and the 1335. What time prophecy fixes October 22, 1844? There's two time prophecies. 2300 days and no, the 70 weeks. 70 weeks, right? 70 weeks is determined unto God's people, right? Right, 70 weeks. Okay. And from the time that Christ's sanctuary ministered shall be trampled upon, and the papacy set up, there shall be 1,290 days. And blessed he that waiteth and come to the 1335. Does that even make sense now? It doesn't make sense. So what happens when things don't make sense? When you're teaching something and it doesn't make sense, what happens now to people now these days when they're holding on this modern theologian's view and they say, wait a minute, people are going to say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. When is the 1290 and the 1335? What do the teachers now do? They don't teach it. Have you heard people teaching the 1290 and 1335 in any Daniel and Revelation seminars? No, nobody teaches it. Because nobody can really, using the modern theologian's view, you cannot teach it. Okay, I'm going to go through this, 1290 and 1335, okay? We'll do this really quick, all right? We'll do this really quick. All right, we know that the daily fixes 1290 and 1335. The daily is when? Is the beginning of 1290 and 1335. All right, let's do this. This is the pioneer view, right? They know that the daily paganism was taken away, 508, right? And 1290 from 508 is 1798. What is this? What is the 1290 then? From 508 to 1798, what is 1290 then? That's the time of papal power, right? But it starts persecuting in 538 until it stopped persecuting, because what happened in 1798? It received a deadly wound. So it no longer is able to persecute God's people, right? It is no longer able to trample underfoot God's people, right? Yeah. Before that, it was trampling underfoot God's people, right? So 1290 is pointing to the papacy, right? Okay, so 1335, from 508 to 1335, our pioneers were teaching it would end at 1843. We know they also they understood that they were giving the first angel's message starting in 1798. And in 1843, they say, oh yeah, we are giving the second angel's message, because that's the end of the 1335 time period. You know? But they were disappointed, all right? Yeah, they had to come out of Babylon. What's the second angel's message is what? Come out of Babylon, right? They had to come out of Babylon. They had to come out of the Protestant churches, right? Okay. This is what they were teaching. The first angel's message begins when 1290 ends. The second angel's message begins when the 1335 ends, right? Okay. The problem is that Jesus didn't come in 1843. And they were looking at their calendar. Okay, this is 1843. 1843 is about to end. This is December 31, 1843, and it doesn't appear that Jesus is going to come. Oh boy, what are we going to do? They look at they said, okay, the 2300 days also has to end in 1843. But it's about to end and Jesus hasn't come yet. And they realized that they were looking at the Gregorian calendar. Doesn't appear that Jesus is going to come. All right. Oh boy, what are we going to do? All right. They said, okay, the 2300 days also has to end in 1843. Okay. So they were saying it's Gregorian time, right? We're looking at Gregorian time. Do you think that the 2300 days start in the beginning with a Gregorian time? It was in 457 BC. Was it on Gregorian time? It can't be. It was not on Gregorian time. It's on, right, this is December and this is the beginning of 1844. It's on Jewish time. So we have to synchronize Jewish time with Gregorian time. And when they synchronize Gregorian time and Jewish time, they realize that the end of 1843, basically, the first day of the first month on Jewish time would actually happen in the spring, right? It actually didn't happen on December 31. It'll actually happen in the spring. Right? How did they figure it out? Based on the barley harvest, right? Based on the barley harvest. The barley harvest, when the Jews actually look at the barley harvest, they say the first moon, when the new moon that happens after the barley harvest is the first day of the first month, all right? So they have to wait for the new moon, and that's the first day of the first month. And that happens here in spring, okay? It happened in spring, all right? So they said, okay, well, we're going to move it up to spring. Now, the first day of the first month, then they studied Ezra 7:9. The first day of the first month is when they came out of Babylon. And when they came out of Babylon, Ezra said to his brothers, come out of Babylon, right? Come join me, and let's go back to Jerusalem. What kind of message is that? Come out of Babylon. That's the second angel's message. Oh, you're right. It's the second angel's message. Come out of Babylon is the second angel's message. It's given on the first day of the first month. All right? So they realized that's the second angel's message. And when they put it based on the barley harvest, they understood that it happened on April 19. And they said, okay, Jesus got to come on April 19, 1844. Right? Because we studied Ezra 7:9. We studied barley harvest. Jesus is going to come here on April 19. But were they disappointed? Absolutely, they were disappointed. What? Jesus didn't come. This was their first disappointment. Then they realized, according to Matthew 25, what were they doing? They were in a tarrying time, because Ezra had to tarry when he was calling his brothers out of Babylon. He had to wait for 3 days before he could go back to Jerusalem. So they said, the tarrying time, isn't that also Matthew 25? Isn't that when the virgins were all sleeping? They were in a tarrying time. So we must be in a tarrying time too. All right? There's their tarrying time. Okay? And there's going to be a midnight cry. And then after the midnight cry is when the procession is going to come. If they know that this is the first day of the first month, all they got to do is count the days and the months. And they come up to when the sanctuary is actually cleansed at the end of the 2300 days, right? And that's the day of atonement, right? Day of atonement, okay. When the bridegroom tarried, and midnight there was a cry made, so that's the midnight cry. The bridegroom come out and meet him. All the virgins arose. And they realized this is the day of atonement. Okay. So now they moved this to October 22, 1844. So this is the first angel's message given. Second angel's message given, the time of the first disappointment. This is the time of the great disappointment. The third angel's message being given. All right? The end of the 2300 days. Okay. Wow. Right? That's the third angel's message. And they realize there's a closed door And this is when Hiram Edson, right, received his sanctuary message vision, right, at the field there. Okay, all right, this is where we're at. Okay, and I'm going to keep going here. Oh, wow. I put this here because I do have to read this, all right? Now, the thing about it is that after all the first generation pioneers died, A.G. Daniels, Conradi, and W.W. Prescott continued to teach the new view of the daily. And because Prescott was the educational conference secretary, all the teachers in the schools had to teach the new view of the daily. If they taught it, even if they taught it, but if they taught it, they had to teach the new view. And no longer was there anybody. So nowadays, nobody teaches the old view. And this is what has happened, right? If rational beings really desire the truth, God will give them sufficient light to enable them to decide what is truth. If they have a heart to obey, they will see sufficient evidence to walk in the light. But if they in heart desire to evade the truth, He will not work a miracle to gratify their unbelief. He will never remove every chance or occasion to doubt. If they honestly, sincerely grasp the light and walk in it, that light will increase and will until lingering doubts will be dispelled. But if they choose darkness, their questioning and cavilling over the truth will increase. Their unbelief will be strengthened, and the light which they would not accept will become to them darkness. And how great will be that darkness? It will be as much greater than before the light came. As the light which was rejected was clearer and more abundant than the light which was first shone upon them. Thus it was with the Jewish nation. Thus it will be with the Christian world in every generation. Wow. The rejectors of light treasure up to themselves wrath against the day of wrath. There are those who walk amid perpetual doubts. They feed on doubts, enjoy doubts, talk doubts, and question everything that it is for their interest to believe. To those who thus trifle with the plain testimonies of God's word, and they refuse to believe because it is inconvenient and unpopular to do so, the light will finally become darkness, and truth will appear to the darkened understanding as error, and error will be accepted as truth. When thus shrouded in error, they will find it perfectly natural and convenient to believe what is false, and will become strong in their faith. This is pretty convincing. God will, He is not going to make it all black and white. There will always a place for you to be able to doubt it. So that will actually separate those who are the real students from those who don't want to study, right? Who accept somebody's conclusion, right? So you have to study for yourself, right? If you keep going down the wrong path, now I'm not going to go through all our, I've collected multiple Sabbath school lessons of what is being taught these days. It's basically Prescott's and Daniel's view of the daily, all right? Okay, we're going to go, all right, we're going to go here. Now we're going to go to Daniel 11:31, all right. An arm shall stand on its part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily, and shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. Right? And here the daily is taken away is what is? It's sur, right? It's take away, set aside, right? It's sur, take aside. Okay, that's from my old. That's from my old slides. Anyway, Daniel 11:31 is very crucial. This is where it applies to us. So we say, why is it so important? Why is it such a big deal? You know what I mean? Why is it paganism and Christ's ministration? Is it really a big deal for us? You know, is it really a big deal? All right. Remember Daniel 11. We're talking about Daniel 11. We have no time to lose. Troubled times are before us. The world is stirred with a spirit of war. Soon the scenes of trouble spoken in the prophecies will take place. The prophecy in the 11th of Daniel, he's talking about the prophecy in Daniel 11, has nearly reached its complete fulfillment. Much of the history that has taken place in fulfillment of this prophecy will be repeated. There's going to be a part of Daniel 11 that's going to be repeated. In the 30th verse, a power is spoken of that shall be grieved and return, and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. And then she quotes Daniel 11, verse 31 to 36. Okay, so what is Ellen White saying? Daniel 11, verses 30 to 36 is going to be repeated in the end time. Okay? History will be repeated. Okay, Daniel 11, verse 31 is going to be repeated. All the way to 36 is going to be repeated in our time. So is it important that we know it? We better know it, what it means, because it's going to be repeated in the end time. Okay, I can't believe how important it is. Scenes similar to those described in these words will take place. We see evidence that Satan is fast obtaining the control of human minds who have not the fear of God before them. Let all read and understand the prophecies of this book, for we are now entering upon the time of trouble spoken of. And now she quotes Daniel 12. Okay, what is she actually saying? We have to read and understand Daniel 11. Why? It's going to be repeat, so that we will be ready for Daniel 12. What's in Daniel 12? Michael stand up, and the close of probation. If we don't understand Daniel 11, are we going to be ready for Daniel 12? Ellen White says, no. You better understand Daniel 11, specifically Daniel 11, verse 30 to 36, which includes Daniel 11, verse 31. That part will repeat. All right? So we have to understand specifically that part. That part is going to be repeated because we want to be ready for Michael standing up, Daniel 12. All right, where am I at? Okay, 68. All right, I'm going to jump all the way to here. Okay, now I'm going to repeat this. You know, what are we doing with time? Okay, we're okay. We're doing okay with time. All right, I'm going to jump all the way to this part. All right, Daniel 11, verse 31. Right, Daniel 11, verse 30. There's the ships of Chittim will come. Oh, I should do the 11, verse 30. Okay, should I do 11 verse 30? All right. For the ships of Chittim shall come against him. Now this is what Ellen White said, right? This will repeat. Therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence for them which forsake the holy covenant. All right, the ships of Chittim. Now this is pioneer understanding. Who's the ships of Chittim? Barbarian tribes. And what were they in our pioneers were teaching? What were they? Which trumpets were they? Trumpets 1 to 4, right? They were the trumpets. So these are the trumpets that have come against the Holy Covenant, right? It is, and you know, they were going to come, and now because they have come, now the Rome is going to go against God's people. Wow. How's the trumpet powers going to come, attack Rome, and because of that, Rome is going to persecute God's people? All right. This. I'm not going to go into. This is actually a long history. We're going to just go ahead. Okay. We're going to go to Daniel 11 verse 31 now. An arm shall stand on his part. Right. What is arms that will stand on his part? Armies are going to be given on whose part now? The papacy, right? Yeah. Who's giving the arms? Clovis and Arthur. They're going to give their arms to the papacy, right? And then they shall pollute the sanctuary's strength. What is it? They shall pollute the sanctuary? Who's going to pollute the sanctuary's strength? What's the sanctuary's strength of the papacy? What's the sanctuary of strength? What his strength? His seat. What is his seat? The city of Rome. Who pollutes? Who attacks the city of Rome? The barbarians, right? The Vandals, the Goths, Ostrogoths, and all that, right? And then shall take away. Oh boy. And shall take away the daily sacrifice. Okay, they're attacking the sanctuary of strength. They're attacking Rome. Right here is the four trumpets, and now he shall take away the daily sacrifice. The pagan religion, right? He's going to take away the pagan religion. How does the papacy pluck out the pagan religions? By plucking out the Heruli and the Vandals and the Ostrogoths. But the thing is about these were actually non-Trinitarians, right? They plucked out these pagans, right? They called them pagans, but they were actually non-Trinitarians between 508 and 538. And what did they do? They shall take away, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. Now, who's the abomination that they place in Rome? The papacy, right? The papacy, right? So Pope John II in 533 was declared by Justinian as what? The head of all holy churches, the head of all bishops, and the true effector, corrector of heretics. Right? Who are the heretics? The trumpet power. Those are the heretics. Those are the ones, right? And the Vandals and we've got to pluck them out, right? They don't believe in what? They don't believe in the Trinity. And they say they don't keep the Sabbath, they don't keep the Lord's Day, right? All right. Okay. Now this is the part that we're going to say. How does that repeat in our time? All right? How does this repeat in our time? We got to put this in this is what we studied. This is what we've been studying for a long time. And we're going to have to put this in our time because Ellen White says Daniel 11 verse 30 to 36 is going to repeat in our time. We have to know it, and it's going to be our preparation for Daniel 12. All right. And arms shall stand on his part. Okay. When does arms stand on the papacy part? When does a country give its power to the papacy? In our time. When the Holy Alliance was made between Ronald Reagan and John Paul II. He used his economic strength and military power to intimidate Russia, right? Soviet Union, to take down Soviet Union, right? Because the papacy wanted to take down why does the papacy want to take down the Soviet Union? They're atheists, one thing, and what's the other thing? What did they do after World War II? They took away all the Eastern Bloc countries, right? What were the Eastern Bloc countries before? They were the daughters of the papacy, right? And the Babylon says, I'm not going to die a widow. I'm not going to die a widow. I want my daughters back, right? Yeah. So he wants, the Soviet Union has to fall, and I need a country to give me power. So arms shall stand on his part. Ronald Reagan give the arms to stand on his part. And then they shall pollute the sanctuary, right? How they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength. How is the sanctuary of strength being polluted now? What is the sanctuary of strength now? What's the United States sanctuary of strength? What is the strength of this country? Constitution, right? Ellen White says in Great Controversy. How is the sanctuary of strength polluted? Is the Constitution being changed? What happened when a trumpet power hit New York in 2001? Did they change the Constitution to take away your rights of privacy with the Patriot Act? When a trumpet power, right? So the first 4 trumpets were against Rome. What about the 4th and the 5th trumpet? What was that? The 4th and the 5th trumpet, according to Revelation 9, what did our pioneers teach? What was the 4th and the 5th trumpet? Was it Islam? Absolutely, it's Islam. The 4th and the 5th trumpet is Islam. That was attacking the papacy. What's the 5th and the 6th trumpet is Islam. What's the 7th trumpet of the 7 trumpets? If the 5th and the 6th trumpet is Islam, what's the 7th trumpet, you think? It's Islam. It's Islam. The 7th trumpet blew right here, and they had to change their constitution. They shall pollute the sanctuary of strength. They changed the constitution, taking away the rights of privacy of the people. And now what's going to happen? They shall take away the daily sacrifice. Okay, what is the daily? The daily was paganism in the previous ones we studied, but the daily paganism was actually a religion that was keeping the papacy from rising. What's the religion that's keeping the papacy from rising in America? Protestantism. Right? Shall they take away that religion? Right? What are they going to do? They're going to stop protesting. The Protestantism that was keeping the papacy from rising is taken away. See, do you see how this is repeating? And then they shall place the abomination of desolation that makes us desolate. Who's the abomination that makes us desolate? Papacy. What's the papacy going to do? Right here. Make a Sunday law, right? Make a Sunday law. Yeah. All right. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. Right? He will flatter the people. He will give flattery. That he called the Clovis the most Christian majesty, the eldest son of the church, and he called Justinian the one shines as a star. And what did he do in 538 after he had plucked out the Vandals, Ostrogoths, and the Heruli? He made a third Council of Orleans. What's the third Council of Orleans in 538? no labor on Sunday. He made a Sunday law, right? In 538, he made a Sunday law. All right. And he shall do wickedly against the covenant. What is it he will do wickedly against the covenant? He will persecute God's people. And then there's going to be persecution, right? After the Sunday law. Right? So you see that how this repeats? It happened with the Waldenses, Albigenses, Huguenots, all that. This is what happened before. This is what happens now. So when we understand the daily, and we understand Daniel 11, and Ellen White said it is going to be repeated in our time, we have to understand that it is a historical event, right? It can be spiritualized into Christ's ministration, but that would not show the big whole picture. You cannot put that into the context of Daniel 11, verse 30 to 36, as a historical event that will repeat in our time. Right? Ellen White said it's going to be repeating in our time. So if we study all of this, we'll know. Now this is just a, kind of a summary. We've done the daily many times, but to understand that what our pioneers had to go through, and we see the changing of the understanding of it from what William Miller taught. And what Ellen White said was the correct view, that the pens that was accepted by God has been changed, right? So that when they change it, they can no longer argue from cause to effect. And this is what Satan's goal was, to confuse God's people. So that in the end, what happens? They cannot understand what the papacy is doing, right? Because the 1290 is actually pointing to who? It's the papacy. And these days, people are confused as to who the papacy is. All right, okay, let me go. All right, okay, I'm going to find out where's my conclusion here. All right, yeah, we've done this before, but let me find where my conclusion is. All right. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. Okay. All right. What is it that we need to do daily? Genuine sanctification. Genuine sanctification is nothing less than a daily dying to self, in daily conformity to the will of God. I protest by your rejoicing, which I have in Christ Jesus, our Lord. I die daily. Right? The understanding of daily is very important. Yeah, to understanding exactly what's going to happen, because we know. But what is it that we truly have to do daily? We have to die daily. I'm crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. All right. So based on, this is a rather fast overview of what we've been studying, and to understand the Son of God, how the Son of God was being attacked, really. The understanding of who the Son of God was being attacked at the 1919 Bible Conference as being co-eternal with the Father. We can actually say that, because this was complete contradiction with what our pioneers actually taught, right? Yeah. And that continual ministry of Christ in the sanctuary being taken away by paganism was taken out of context when it is viewed with Daniel 8:11. And then you cannot synchronize it with Daniel 11 verse 31 to show that this will repeat in our time, right? And knowing on all that, maybe all be able to use all of this so that we can get ready, because Daniel 12:1 is not far ahead, you know. Michael is going to stand up, and we have to understand, right? Okay, and that is a more sure word of prophecy.